Here is your next fun grammar packet. I know it looks like a big fat one. However, this is punctuation. Okay, and with punctuation, you are going to be putting things in. Now, the important part that I want you to remember about doing punctuation is I need to be able to see it. So if you're using the same color as the ink on the page, then you need to make certain that you are highlighting where you are putting the punctuation in. One way to do that is to use an editing mark. Okay, and the editing mark for punctuation, such as a period or a comma or quotation marks, is you circle it so that you can see them. So I'm going to ask that you do that if you are using black or pencil, black ink or pencil, because that way I can find the marks. I'm using a dark blue pen, so it's actually easy to see this in comparison to the ink on the page. So that should not be a problem for you guys to see what we're doing. We're going to go through a couple of pages at a time here because this is going to be a packet that's only going to be divided into two. So, punctuating quotations. A direct quotation is a speaker's exact words. Use quotation marks at the beginning and at the end of a direct quotation. Chicken pox is a contagious disease, the doctor said. Use commas to set off the explanatory words used with the direct quotation at the beginning, middle, or end. Okay, these are the explanatory words, what they're referring to here. You can put it in the end, you can put it in the beginning, you could also put it in the middle. You are setting that off with commas. If the quotation itself is a question or an exclamation, the question mark or explanation should be placed inside the quotation marks. Commas and periods always go inside the end quotation marks. If the quotation is part of a question or explanation, the question mark or exclamation point should be placed outside the end quotation marks. Did the doctor say you need to have a booster shot? Okay, and this is where you're going to have it outside. If it is actually inside, then that means it's looking at it differently. But this is the entire thing is the question. This portion here, if it stood alone, would actually be a sentence. A divided quotation is a direct quotation that is divided into two parts by explanatory words. Both parts are enclosed in quotation marks. The first word in the second part is not capitalized unless it begins a sentence. Review the above examples to see how to punctuate and capitalize divided quotation. A dialogue is a conversation between two or more speakers. When writing dialogue, indicate a change in speaker by using a new paragraph and a new set of quotation marks. Mrs. Abdallah, the doctor asked, how long have you had this cough? Well, I have felt sick for over a week, Mrs. Abdallah replied. An indirect quotation is a restatement in somewhat different words of what someone said. Do not use quotation marks to set off an indirect quotation. The doctor told me that I should start feeling better soon. Add quotation marks where necessary in each of these sentences. Angela asked, comma. Okay, here's our quotation marks at the beginning, and then we're going to have our quotation marks at the end. Did she say I was sick with the flu last weekend? Here we have our quotation marks there and our quotation marks there. Go ahead and add your quotation marks for the rest of this page. Continuing on to the next page, you're just going to be doing the same thing here, except you are going to add quotation marks, commas, and end marks where necessary in each sentence. I can't wait to visit my cousin in the hospital next week, said Monica. So we're going to put quotation marks at the beginning, and we're going to put a comma here, and quotation marks are going to be outside of that comma. The patient stated Dr. Satiato has Lyme disease. So we're going to have stated, and we're going to have quotation marks at the beginning and the end. The doctor announced I plan to treat her infection with antibiotics. After announced, is our comma, then we're going to have our quotation marks outside of it. B, add the necessary quotation marks to the dialogue below. Did you hear? David said, Connie broke her leg last week in the soccer game. How long will she be in a cast? Okay, and you're going to continue with that. Those were our quotation marks. Now we're looking at other uses of commas. So this is going to be continuing with your direct quotation. This is just going to give you more explanation. You can read this on your own if you need further explanation on how to do direct quotation, divided quotation, and indirect quotation. You're going to have examples that you need to go through here and do on the bottom of this page. Other uses of commas. This is using commas to separate the parts of dates, addresses, and letters. In a date, use a comma between the day, the month, and the year. If the date is part of a sentence, use another comma after the year. Do not use a comma if only the month and the year are given. So we can see here, we're going to separate it here, okay, because we have the month, the day, and the year. However, here we only have the month and the year, so it does not need to be separated. Use a comma to separate the parts of an address. Note that no comma is used before the zip code. So we have Buffalo and New York. We have London and we have England. He lives at this address in this city. And then we have the initials for the state, but no comma before our zip. In friendly letters, use a comma after the greeting. If both friendly and business letters, use a comma after the closing. Use a comma to separate empty sentence parts that might be improperly joined or misunderstood without the comma. Oftentimes, we can look at the comma also as a form of a pause. If you are reading, when we are reading, we pause when we hit a comma. If you feel that there needs to be a pause there, that's one place to put a comma. Using commas correctly, add commas where necessary in the following sentences. Write to 50 West 44th Street, comma, New York, New York. We're leaving for Minnesota on Thursday, July 5th. Dear Aunt Helen, comma. Add commas to the following sentences to make the meaning clear. Inside the wall was broken, crumbled and broken. Okay, so we're not saying inside the wall, we're saying inside, as in inside the home. As he watched, 4 soldiers came in after him. As he watched, 4 soldiers came in? No. As he watched, then 4 soldiers came in. So we're making sure that we put commas in to avoid any of those errors. Continuing with the quotation marks, I know it looks like there's a piece of hay here. It's all because of how I copied this. When I used my copy machine, there apparently was a piece of hay because I had just fed the guinea pigs. So it looks like there is a piece of hay, but as you can see, I can't wipe it off because it's actually a colored copy machine. You're going to see here we have more quotation marks along the lines with dialogue, and we're going to look at that. It's just going to tell you to do that. And then punctuating the titles correctly. Okay, one of the big things about punctuating titles correctly is we use quotation marks for small items and underline or italics for the big pieces. Okay, what does that mean? It means if you're talking about a song, that's going to be in quotations. If you're going to talk about the album is underlined. If you're going to talk about a short story, a poem, anything that is small, that's going to go in quotations. If you're talking about a novel, that's going to be underlined. So Casey at Bat's a poem, so we're going to put that in quotations. The Dog That Bit People is an essay, is going to be quotations. Carmen, the opera, is going to be underlined. The Star Spangled Banner is a song, and it's going to go in quotations. The next section is going to be on apostrophes, which will be continued on Thursday. Remember that these packets, you're going to have a packet on clauses and the punctuation packet are both going to be due Friday by the end of day. I will be coming in after school to pick up the uh, all of the work. So make sure everything is clearly identified. If something doesn't have a name on it, I'm going to not know because I can't talk to you immediately and say, hey, is this yours? So it does go in the book as a 0 beforehand. Make sure you use my email and contact me if you have any questions. Some of your cohort, some of your peers have been in contact with me through email, and there is a way to contact me via a telephone call if you need to talk to me sooner. So talk to Miss Owens about that if you need to.